Hi, Doug here from Ultrabook Review. I wanted to do sort of a low-key video just because there's some stuff that I've had on my mind about tech basically since CES this year and just Mobile World Congress. And I felt pretty, in general, disillusioned with the whole thing, sort of as someone who reports on tech and as a, consumer, prosumer. And my first kind of thought was I just wanted to rant, but I thought that's not that constructive. So I want to be a bit more constructive, and I'm going to try and be positive, but just be forewarned that I'm going to be a little bit critical and hopefully not too ranty, but maybe a little bit. But I'm going to try and put a positive spin on things to at least be more constructive than, basically just bitching the whole time. So basically this is my feelings on the state of mobile technology in 2019. So, and honestly, the image up here will say a lot about what I'm going to talk about. So, first off, I'll start off with the first disappointment of mine, because I was really excited seeing the renders and sort of the mock-ups of the Sony Xperia 10. I used to be a big Sony fan. I always bought the compact series because they're phones that just fit in your hand. They're not huge, and they don't demand all your attention and all your dexterity to use. So I was really excited, and then I saw that they're putting tiny batteries in these phones, like 2800, 2700 milliamp hour, and I just don't understand what Sony's team is doing. And so basically just, Sony, please, people are looking for fresh designs, and so you've got that part down, I think, now, but don't put 4K screens in a phone with like a 20-something milliamp hour battery. It's just a complete deal killer, and I really wonder, just what's going on. I mean, their spokesman was impeccably dressed, so they've got that down, but in terms of the actual, the products, keep the headphone jacks, keep them small. I mean, for the people who like the XC compacts, and they were always known for good battery life, so just keep the batteries in there. So yeah. Next bit would be no secret, I think. So Huawei, but not just Huawei. It's a sort of my issue with tech news coverage and Huawei in general. And so the first part is that I think, sort of ethically in a way, it's good. Okay, it's good to cover products that people think are interesting, and so I understand that people look at stuff like the the MateBook X Pro, and it looks interesting. But the moral aspect comes in is that I see a lot of channels doing sponsorships for Huawei, and doing lots and lots of coverage, and there's a couple issues that I have with that, and one, of course, just being that Huawei more or less is just going off the intellectual property of other companies. And there's nothing, I mean, depending on how you view IP, there is or there is something wrong with that. But I mean, it's fine to do like TechLast videos and stuff, products that are cheap and they're sort of they're inspired by the aesthetic of Apple. But with a company like Huawei that is just so clearly taking other companies' intellectual property and basically just riffing off it, it's like they can do better, and I don't think we should reward that behavior. And the second part of that is like the connection. A lot of people are just overlooking or brushing off the political connections of Huawei. And I've written an article about that in the Journal of Political Risk called Huawei and China, Not Just Business as Usual, which I'll link in the description if you're interested in reading more. But basically, it's like, okay, Huawei more or less is the Chinese government. And, that normally that's fine, but the problem is that the Chinese government, again, this is someone who's lived in the Greater China region for about 12 years. The Chinese government is not the same. I would not put it on equal, you cannot equivocate it with the US or even Russia or other governments. So as an example here, these lyrics are from a Chinese government-sponsored propaganda film with little kids singing, in Chinese, obviously. Which phone is the most beautiful in the world? Everyone says it's Huawei. The battery is durable. The appearance is good. China's chips are the most precious. Huawei is good. Huawei is beautiful. Huawei gives me wisdom. Teacher teaches me to love my motherland and homegrown brand Huawei. Huawei wins glory for our country. And so they are literally telling you what they're doing. And this is not really, I hope I'm not being biased here. It's not like a political issue. It's an issue of what kind of values and behavior you want to promote. And so I understand covering their products, but there's something about taking money from Huawei that, and covering the product and doing it in a very positive way without sort of looking a bit deeper, that bothers me. But, that's just me, and I'm not doing this full time. So next up, about sort of disappointments of 2019. The roadmap for the Lenovo ThinkPad line has been leaked, and basically the roadmap shows that sort of the power bridge technology, which is basically there are two batteries. There's an internal battery and then an external battery that you can hot swap. And so the hot swapping is going away from the newer ThinkPads, and also there are no longer two soldered RAM slots, so there's only going to be one soldered RAM slots in most of the T series and X series, which before was something that we only saw in the S series. So I am saddened to see Lenovo and ThinkPad kind of aping Apple. It's like, these are products that we want to buy because they're upgradable, because you can find parts for them, because they're durable, and moving more and more towards that sort of everything soldered, nothing upgradable, thinner and thinner, less battery life, is not the way I would like to see things go. USB-C power banks are nice, but I don't want, they weigh as much as an AC adapter, if not more. I don't want to carry one, period. I want the option of having more battery life, and I think a lot of people do. Especially the prime market of these machines. I'm just noticing that in my visuals I have some stray quotes, so sorry about that. This is sort of an impromptu video. Dell is sort of another company that's been a bit frustrating to see as sort of an enthusiast, because the XPS series have been so good and they just haven't been putting in a lot of effort in terms of squashing bugs and things that have been kind of plaguing the platform, like Thunderbolt 3, sleep issues, changing the throttling temperature of the GPU from 78 degrees down to 74, not telling anyone that they did it, blocking BIOS reverse upgrader, or blocking the downgrading of the BIOS to remove that GPU temperature limit that affects performance greatly. I just think it's very unsavory for a company to send out notebooks, get them reviewed, sites like Notebook Check, Ultrabook Review, we put up benchmarks, and then suddenly later, without telling anyone, you change the fundamental function of the machine, so performance is affected. But it's after the benchmarks have been done and after the reviews are out. I don't like that, and I would like to see that behavior kind of, let's say, tail off. And I would love to see Dell kind of take responsibility and fix the problems on the platform with the XPS laptops that have been there. They're really good, but like thermally, I believe the 2019 XPS 13, the 9380, sort of, it's going in the direction that the last one did that I was concerned about, which is where the fans would not spin up until the CPUs had been hitting like 95, 100 degrees or something for like a minute. And they've been doing that intentionally because, they want them to act more like quiet MacBooks rather than performance machines. And well, for me, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, that I want more performance, or at least give me the ability to get full performance at a cost of higher fan speed. The current ultra performance mode in the Dell power management software does not allow for that. It does not. It's because the temperatures are being measured outside of the die of the CPU. So even though the CPU is hitting like 100°C, the fans are not spinning up because the area outside the Gore-Tex thermal insulation has not heated up yet. So that's an approach that I do not like. Okay, Apple. I mean, there's not too much to say here that hasn't already been said, but it's been disappointing to see that the company hasn't been learning from their mistakes. The touch bar, the keyboards, the lack of proper I/O, the soldering of RAM, the soldering of even the proprietary SSDs. And, you know, if you do that, but you've got rock solid laptops and software, okay, you still have a value proposition. But the thing is, Apple no longer has been doing that. And I don't really know, you know, what's been going on with the company. Obviously, Tim Cook is focusing on, you know, quarterly revenue going up for the shareholders. But whatever's going on with the internal management, you can see by sort of the degradation of the hardware and the software and the overall everything that Apple's offering these days, you can see that something's not right with the company, just in terms of things do not work. There's no longer a singular vision with their products, and that singular vision and the achievement of that vision, you know, under Jobs, and you know, after his death for a few more years, which was their selling point, that singular vision is not there anymore. You don't get the quality. You're not getting even the best support because they're overbooked at the Genius bars, and they don't do on-site service like Dell or Lenovo do. And so, you know, we need more competition. Competition is good. So I hope Apple gets their asses in gear and gives us some competition again. Okay, so I don't want to name names, but as a reviewer or someone who works with other reviewers, we cannot be buying our own laptops and staying in the game. You cannot make enough money to live on it. So we essentially live off early review samples from companies that are generous enough to spend time giving us their review samples. And of course, the earlier we get those review samples, the better. So I don't want to name names, but some companies and I've worked with them, and I know people who've worked with them, they get pissed off when, even though we give their product a high rating overall, if we mention negatives in the review, they get upset. And then the implicit threat is that we're not going to get our lifeblood, which is sample laptops, anymore. So even if we give a laptop like a 4, 4.5 out of 5, and then we say, oh, well, we ran into these issues, unfortunately, with our pre-release unit, then we get a lot of static and a lot of flack and upset people from their PR department, and it is influencing the reviews that you guys see on websites and in video reviews for YouTube channels, all those tech channels that we follow. It's influencing those, and you're not getting the full story, and that needs to stop. So please, companies, please start. I mean, you know, don't be EA with your Anthem reviews and invite people to take a look at stuff for free and then kind of implicitly threaten them if they're not saying all positive things. If we don't talk about the negatives of laptops, nothing gets fixed. And we've been seeing that, I think, for the past few years, that a lot of channels are just talking about positives and mention some negative, and well, you may not be getting a laptop again from that manufacturer, and then there goes your livelihood. All right, another thing about this year, it's been going on a while, but the whole 5G thing, I'm not personally, I don't get it. 3G to 4G, that's like a 10, you know, that's an order of magnitude, an extra 0 in terms of bandwidth, huge. But I really think that 4G, basically, I don't think most people are getting nearly the maximum amount of 4G bandwidth already. We're not we don't need 5G speeds yet. And the drawbacks of 5G in terms of the signal strength and the number of antenna towers that we'll need, it's basically going to be putting 5G towers every block or something. And the issues with that are health, that it's not clear what's going on with the health implications of 5G. The issues are monetary, with building the infrastructure, and there are huge issues with security, especially, and this goes back to Huawei and other Chinese companies that are responsible for building infrastructure and trying to get bids for for setting up infrastructure. Like the fact that there needs to be 5G towers everywhere, to me, this is something that it's unnecessary. And if you look at who's pushing for 5G, it's definitely, there's no consumer push for it. It's just companies looking to make money off it, and governments. And the drawbacks are, for me, I don't see like going from a 5-second download of a movie to potentially a 2-second download of a movie. I don't see the benefits of that overcoming the very clear drawbacks. All right, last thing is just about kind of Silicon Valley in general, and it's kind of sad to see, as someone who's been sort of interested in tech their whole lives, and it used to be that like Silicon Valley was sort of the place for thinking differently. And Apple's old slogan was "Think Different," and they were the ones being sort of politically incorrect and coming up with new ideas and pushing things forward. And somewhere along the lines in the last few years, things have changed. They've changed a hell of a lot. I don't know if I don't think it's really malicious. It's more just about, now everything is about playing it safe, getting the maximum value from every customer, from every person whose data that you're milking and collecting and, selling. And it's just about, somewhere along the line, it just became, keep the majority happy. Don't do anything that could make them unhappy. Don't take any risks. And so this goes, obviously social media is a huge thing, but it's also, I think, what we're seeing with companies like Apple. And they're just, I'm a big fan of capitalism, but, it just seems like it's all about shareholders and increasing revenue quarter after quarter after quarter. And I think the people there have just sort of lost perspective of what they're doing and what their values are and what technology should be. And so for me, I just feel quite disappointed this year with everything going on, that, technology it's not what I feel, what I thought it used to be. And maybe it never was that, but, I used to think technology was basically, it could measurably make my life better. I could work, faster and more efficiently, and it's just become something very different now, and I don't really like it, I have to say. So anyway, this is just something I wanted to share off the cuff. I don't know if you guys like this kind of video. Please let me know. If you'd like to see more or engage in different kinds of discussions about this kind of thing, please leave some comments. If you have any constructive criticism, that's really welcome. I know my production value is, I don't do this for a living. Andre does. I do this in my free time because I care. So anyway, I hope you guys found the video interesting, and please do sound off and let me know what you think about what we talked about.